And live. Hello, everyone. Well, what a week. What a week. I'm definitely going to get a lot more sleep this week than I did last week. So, Kyle Rittenhouse trial finally over. 2 weeks of deliberations. Just about 4.5 days, 24, 25, 26 hours of deliberation on the part of the jury. And the correct verdict. Now, I'm very happy for Kyle to not be going to prison at all, that he was free, that his self-defense claim was vindicated. But I think that it's important also to recognize that this was a really bad situation going around. It was a bad situation just that it happened. And yeah, do you also cheer and punch the air when you verdict? Yeah, so I was actually working on a video that I uploaded earlier today about an aspect of the trial. I did a video on, I was making recordings for, what's his name, Dominic Black, who is his best friend. And that was recording on my main computer, and then I pulled out my cell phone to watch the coverage, and I caught it about 2 minutes after it happened. So I went into a live feed and it had just ended, so I went back and watched the beginning. Yeah, and I was absolutely happy. Now, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it's funny how humans can be this emotional. Like, I don't know Kyle Rittenhouse, and I don't even know if he's a good guy. Probably lots of things about him I don't like. We only got this sliver of his life. But whatever he may or may not be, he didn't deserve to go to prison for the rest of his life. And to see him be faced with that prospect where at the same time being completely vilified and demonized by a substantial portion of the population, not the entire population. He was also lionized, which whether he deserved or not, and people can debate on that, that's going to it could potentially anyway put all kinds of other pressures on him. He may feel like he's got to live up to this exalted status and this reviled status. And that's such a complicated place to be in. I don't know. He really probably is in a unique place. I saw that Nick Sandmann has written an open letter to him and gone on to Sean Hannity, and I couldn't bear to watch the whole thing because it just seemed like Sandmann trying to get a little bit of spotlight. I think that it was true that they probably do have some similarities. I mean, there are some things that are similar between Nick Sandmann and Kyle Rittenhouse, but in some very, very important ways, it's just completely different. And what Nick Sandmann had to go through, which was terrible. I mean, Nick Sandmann, like for literally no reason, had went through a lot. Kyle Rittenhouse went through 1,000 times worse, 1,000,000 times worse. And unlike Sandmann, Kyle actually did do something. Now, it was justifiable, but even what he did, and this came out in the trial, his defense has claimed this, and I think it's true. It seems like he is seriously negatively impacted by just doing it. If he had been not charged with anything, and there'd been, the media had just said, oh, it's a self-defense case, open and shut, he'd probably still have PTSD and be having nightmares and be ruined. So, what's buzzing? It's my freezer. Is it really that loud? Jesus. Maybe I can. Malice had a lawyer on. Yeah, I think he had. Well, so I've been watching a lot of lawyers, and defamation is very hard even under the best of circumstances. And if you are charged with a serious crime, even if you are acquitted, they can just say, well, look, the government said that you were a murderer. It turned out that you were acquitted, which, by the way, doesn't mean that you're not a murderer. It just means that you couldn't be proven well enough for the state to throw you in prison, that it's basically gone. And so the lawyers I've seen, including people who specialize in defamation, say he's got no case, or it would be extremely, extremely difficult. Now, he probably has a better case if he wants to sue for his civil rights violations, because of all the shit the prosecutors did. The prosecution violated his rights on numerous occasions. They lied. They were malicious and prejudicial. And he might have a case there. But again, prosecutors have a huge degree of immunity. So I don't think that there is much in that. There could be. But I don't know him at all. I could definitely imagine him just saying, I just want to wash my hands and get done with this. If he wanted to, it wouldn't be wrong. They would owe him quite a lot, I would think. But the other thing too, I mean, and I don't know, like, how does he, what do you apply for a job, or become a student? You know, they say he wants to be a nurse. His defense team said that he's going to Arizona State. At one point, Binger tried to accuse him of lying on the stand when he said he went to Arizona State, like they were going to convict him of perjury for that, or even worse, that they were going to use that as evidence that he murdered Joseph Rosenbaum. And parts of the trial were quite ridiculous, where Binger was saying things like he lied about being an EMT and he drove without a license and had a parking ticket, therefore he must have murdered 2 people, right? Like that was the extent that they were willing to contort themselves. It's a greeting. Oh, it's buzzing, cousin. Okay, fair enough, Cozy. But can you just imagine? I mean, you imagine you're in college and your classmate is Kyle Rittenhouse, right? And some people are going to want to buy him a beer and ask him questions, and other people are going to want to like beat him up or accost him or yell at him or scream at him, or even worse. I mean, I'm sure for every person who, you know, many people are going to threaten him. Very few people are actually going to do it. You know, he's somebody that has proven that you don't want to mess with him, especially if he's got an AR-15. But yeah, I don't know. Now, because of his fame and because he's been lionized by a big part of the population, he has some unique entrepreneurial opportunities. One of the Onion articles I read said Kyle Rittenhouse sentenced to 45 years of CPEC speeches, right? So it's a joke, but it's probably not untrue. He's going to get plied and offered, and if he's entrepreneurial about it, he can make a living doing that. But I don't know. I don't know how much he's going to want to do that at college. I guess it's mostly the latter. Yeah, it'll be a mix. Look, there's young Republicans everywhere. And one thing I will say that was interesting about this trial is I noticed during the trial, anybody who watched the trial came away, not anybody, but a lot of people who had preconceptions about what happened changed their minds. Famously, people like Anna Kasparian, Jimmy Dore did a great hour-long episode on this, Glenn Greenwald. And even if you looked at the comments, I kind of made a point of looking at the comment sections of left-wing organizations, ABC, CNN, NBC, MSNBC, BBC, CBC, Australian News, and it was a huge majority of the comments were people saying were pro Kyle, but you even had a lot of people saying, I wasn't. I thought he was a murderer and he killed 6 black people, right? A lot of people thought that he killed Jacob Blake. A lot of people think he killed black people. A lot of people think he was hunting protesters. A lot of people thought his mom drove him across state lines with a gun. There's a lot of things people believed, and some of those things are still getting reported. I'm still finding articles saying he killed 3 black people. He killed protesters. His mom gave him a ride. He took a gun across state lines. He had an automatic rifle. It was illegal for him to have that rifle, and that the judge just dismissed that because the judge is racist and wants to, facilitate. But a lot of people, and Anna Kasparian is probably the most outstanding example. So whoever knew that I would ever give her credit, but even Cenk, I mean, he calls him a horrible racist, but then he admits he has a case. Now you has to wonder about the people who have been saying he's a horrible murderer for an entire year. Did they ever bother to watch the videos? Because if you watch the videos, they were highly exculpatory. You would have to imagine that something happened off camera that we didn't have evidence of that significantly indicted him. And the prosecution said that they maybe did with this FBI footage, and the FBI footage did nothing. And in fact, it filled in the holes in such a way that he couldn't have been guilty. Even our news thought that it was the right verdict. Yeah, so I'm very happy that he's free. I'm very happy that we had this high-profile self-defense case, but I think people should be sanguine and realize he has a about the strongest self-defense case that you can have, other than defending yourself in your own home. That's probably the only thing. Branca, the self-defense attorney Branca, has said repeatedly he has the majority of self-defense cases are bullshit. They're not actually self-defense. People will commit a homicide and then claim self-defense. But even among the cases that are legit, this is the best. He's young. He didn't have a record. And there was video of everything. I mean, the first shooting, I believe there's 4, 5, or 6 videos of that. At least 2 drone footage videos of that, which that's suspicious in its own right. Like, let's not... We're going to have to gloss over that, but there was a whole bunch of issues about surveillance by the FBI that, deserve to be looked at. But, oh, yeah, sorry. We'll do that now. Boom. So he, if that hadn't been recorded, we would have the testimony of him. And then Richie McGinnis happened to be there, and Richie McGinnis clearly believed it was self-defense. But then we'd probably be talking about the Zaminskis, Mr. and Mrs. Zaminski, and whatever other rioters were right there. And so you'd have this he said, she said. If you compare this to like the George Zimmerman case, Zimmerman had a pretty clear case, but we didn't have any footage. He had his testimony. He had physical injuries. There was some audio of that from a 911 call made by a neighbor, and we had the testimony of the neighbor, but we didn't have any video. And this, we had many more witnesses and tons of video. And then the second event, I think even more video and even more witnesses. If we hadn't had that, it would have been his words against theirs, and who knows what would have happened. We know that they were going to lie. Grosskreutz, was caught lying completely in his statements to police and in his civil suit. He claimed that he saw Kyle getting beaten up by a skateboard, which he did by Anthony Huber, and that he wanted to intervene. And he said that he, got Huber off to protect Rittenhouse, and then Rittenhouse shot him, and that he had dropped his gun before he got there. That's what he told. Now, while he got shot in the bicep, he dropped his phone. So when he went to the hospital and was giving a statement to the police the next day, he didn't have his phone, so he hadn't seen the videos, which were everywhere. This happened at, I think, 11:46 p.m., and by midnight, these videos were all over the internet. He hadn't seen those videos, so he lied about what happened. He said he didn't have his gun on him, that he was trying to protect Rittenhouse, and that he was shot in cold blood. Well, if there hadn't been a video, then we would be contesting whether any of that was true, right? We would be having debates about whether he meant it or not, and trying to piece together what he did from the testimony of other witnesses. But because we have multiple videos of it, and there's no serious allegation that those videos are fabricated, we know that he's a liar, and we know exactly what happened. And it was, there's different layers to this, but one of the layers, one of the bars that a lot of states impose, Wisconsin not being one, is if you can retreat, sometimes you're not allowed to do self-defense. Like if you can escape, then you should do that first. The so-called a duty to retreat. And in Kyle, in the second case especially, he's on his ass and he's getting basically piled on. He can't retreat, so that even would meet the duty of retreat. And the first instance, more debatable, but he was cornered by cars. And in the main video, you can't see, but in the drone footage, you can see there's dozens and dozens of armed protesters, armed with at least pipes and probably guns, smashing up cars. So, he couldn't have retreated. But if we had not had video, we wouldn't know. Then what? The other thing, too, is even though he had a very, very clear case, the state still charged him, with 2 homicides, 2 reckless endangerments, and then a host of lesser crimes. And we also know that some of those lesser, all of them were crimes he wasn't really guilty of, and you could see that even in the criminal complaint. The gun charge, especially, Wisconsin is a state where kids hunt, so obviously teenagers his age can have rifles, and if you read the law. Yes, it said that minors under 18 can't possess a dangerous weapon, and they go on to list what dangerous weapons are. It includes a lot of things that are less dangerous than an AR-15, brass knuckles, knives, but then it makes exceptions for shotguns and long guns over a certain length, right, to enable hunting, to enable the rural life. But the exceptions don't say you have to be hunting. They just make exceptions that would grant that, and they happen to grant what he did too. And of course, in the course of the trial, the judge dismissed the case. And if you watch that moment, and one great thing is there were cameras in the courtroom almost the entire time. And so you can watch all of this, and the prosecution conceded that he had not violated that law, and that was wiped away. Of course, in the coverage, it made it sound like a KKK judge, was trying to exonerate a Klansman. He was illegal open carrying, right, because he wasn't 18. It wasn't illegal because there's exceptions for 16 and 17-year-olds for long rifles. The whole thing has done a great job of revealing who is and who isn't an NPC. That's just parroting heads. Yeah, to an extent that you're right. I mean, the number of people who were parroting things that were just not true. That he crossed state lines with a gun, not true. That his mom drove him there, not true. That he was shooting protesters. I mean, if we're going to just substitute the word protesters and say anything that happens is a protest, but people were committing arson. Now, not everybody out that night was. The only one for sure that he killed that was Joseph Rosenbaum, definitely was committing arson. Huber and Grosskreutz, I have not seen evidence that they were. It wouldn't surprise me, especially with Huber, but we don't know. But what exactly, like this conflation of people standing on the steps of the courthouse with a flag and a bullhorn and marching with burning down a business, we're going to have, people don't like to have semantic debates, but at some point you have to. I mean, these two things can't be considered exactly the same. That he was shooting into a crowd, that he was shooting protesters, none of that's true. He was defending a property owned by immigrants, the Kandiri brothers, who lied their asses off. They threw him under the bus, or tried to. Their own lies were so great, though, that they weren't really able to do it. I hope Kyle sues the shit out of a bunch of people. I don't think he has a case for defamation, guys. I would love that. I would love if he could sue CNN and NBC and ABC and MSNBC and all these organizations. Other than Tucker Carlson, pretty much everybody in the mainstream media threw him under the bus. But he's not going to have a case because he was charged. He was charged with very, very serious crimes, and the bar for defamation is high enough on its own. And after something like that happens, it's they can say. I mean, Joe Scarborough said he fired 60 times, which is a demonstrable fact. He fired, I believe, 4 for Rosenbaum, 2 for Jump Kick Man, 1 for Huber, 1 for Grosskreutz. So what is that? 8 shots. The drone videos are police drones, ? So the black and white one is an FBI drone. The other one should never have been put into trial because we don't have a custody stream. We don't know exactly who took it and exactly why and exactly where it came from. There's a lot of very fascinating, interesting questions about the video that came out in the trial. So during the trial, like the second Friday of the trial, the prosecution just came up and said, hey, we have a new video. It turned out part of this video had been aired on national television on Tucker Carlson's show way back on August 30th, 2020. But the version that Tucker aired was a much shorter edited version. Now, the prosecution said that this was someone just walked into their office and dropped it off and gave it to them. This raises all kinds of questions. Well, did they edit it? Is it digitally enhanced? How do we know it's real? How do we know it's not fake? It does appear to be real. I haven't heard anybody, including all the people who've seen it online, who have alleged that it's some kind of deep fake, but that it doesn't answer who recorded it. It seems astonishing that a drone just happened. You can tell from the footage the drone is taking off. A drone takes off literally at the moment that Rittenhouse, Zaminski, and Rosenbaum have their fateful encounter. And as it's starting to climb in the air, it catches, and it's zoomed in on Rittenhouse running away from Rosenbaum. And it catches him having the bag thrown at him, and it catches him shooting Rosenbaum as Rosenbaum is lunging for and likely grabbing or very nearly grabbing his gun. Rittenhouse says he grabbed his gun. McGinnis, the other nearest witness, says he grabbed his gun. And the coroner said that Rosenbaum had burns on his hand consistent with him either having it on the barrel or above the barrel, meaning right there. So it seems likely that this footage was, I say likely, suspicious. I'm suspicious that this was a law enforcement video. The company that produced it was something called Urban Air. They went out of business 2 weeks after all this happened, way back in 2020. And it's just interesting that they would give it to the prosecution partway through the trial. It seems like something that's trying to help the prosecution. So, and who else would be running drones? How? But even if it was the police, how do they just happen to have it right there, right then? It could be as simple as most of the riots and most of the protesting was happening on Sheridan Avenue or concentrated in that area. And, you know, who knows, maybe there were 6 other drones that we haven't seen footage from because they didn't capture anything anyone cares about. So, you know, it may not be a 1 in a million, it may be 6 in a million chance. I don't know. Lots of suspicious questions there, and whenever somebody writes the book, we should probably figure out, hopefully, although I doubt we ever will. My question is, why were drones following Kyle the entire time? Well, if you're talking about the FBI drone, I'm not sure the way they use Zoom and everything. I'm not sure. You know, it could just be up and have a wide enough angle that it can take in a huge area. I'm not sure how that works. And then the zooming could be done in post. I don't know. Could be that he was, because he had a rifle, he was the point of focus. But unless Kyle was coordinating with them and it's all a giant false flag, I don't see how they could know, right? And, you know, not to preclude that saying it's impossible, I just think that's an unlikely degree of sophistication. Very simple question. My family from Europe is asking, why would Kyle carry such a crazy, scary gun? The EU coverage of the story is, as you would expect, asinine in its comprehension of the Second Amendment. Yeah. And even in the United States, automatic weapon, assault weapon, military weapon, spraying bullets, hundreds of rounds, blah, 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 super powerful. 223 is not super powerful. You know, like when he shot Gage Grosskreutz, Gage Grosskreuz's Glock has a higher caliber. It's a bigger bullet. And in the trial, the prosecutors made a huge stink about how Kyle was using full metal jacket bullets as opposed to hollow points. Well, for those of you who know, a hollow point is a bullet where the point of the bullet is hollow, and what happens when it enters your body, it will then flower or break apart in your body and then cause much more massive damage. Now, Prosecutor Binger described it as, quote, exploding in your body, which is completely false. That's not the correct way to say it. But hollow points are considered to be more lethal for the first person. However, then they don't penetrate as far. So a hollow point bullet is less likely to go through somebody. It's just more likely to put all the energy into their torso and really, really, destroy them. A full metal jacket bullet will go right through somebody. Now, make no mistake, a full metal jacket rifle round that goes through your torso will send shockwaves through your torso, and you are in serious, serious, serious trouble. The fact that the bullet goes through you and may have enough energy to hit somebody else doesn't really do you a lot of favors. But they started accusing him of being reckless because he was using full metal jacket and not hollow points. But you can 100% imagine that if he had used hollow points, they would have said, you're using these just to kill. These are extra deadly. And funny, too, they were saying that in the case of Richie McGinnis, who was the closest bystander to the Rosenbaum shooting, and McGinnis argued this, at least in Tim Pool. I don't know if he argued it in court, and you can see it in the video. Rosenbaum is chasing Rittenhouse, and McGinnis is chasing the both of them with his phone out, recording it. Now, he actually didn't have it recording, which I'm sure he's really kicking himself for, because then he would have had just incredible footage. But he's running towards danger, so you can't blame Rittenhouse for him doing that. But the prosecution said Kyle was being reckless because his bullets might have hit McGinnis, although none did. And the defense pointed out all of his bullets hit Rosenbaum. And Krause, one of the prosecutors, said, well, one of them only grazed his head. So he made a headshot, but it bounced off. And so they said he was reckless, right? So you can't please these people, right? If he had used hollow points, they would have said it's too deadly. It's too deadly. It's too I mean, normally left-wingers are trying to ban hollow points. That's normally what they do. right-wing people, some of them will say, well, they're just more deadly and you want more stopping power. But more of them will say, well, it's safer for bystanders, because hollow points tend to be safer for bystanders. But as Rittenhouse's attorney, Richard, said, at that range, it really doesn't make that much difference in terms of lethality. It really doesn't. Oh, we're getting tons of questions. There's a reason Switzerland was not invaded. Everyone there is armed and trained, and it has giant mountains. That's another big reason. There's a new trend among Twitter libertarians to say that the gun rights don't limit state power, which I think is retarded. Yeah, that is retarded. To the extent that they want to say that the state has more powerful weapons, that's true. How useful those weapons are in terms of civil control is questionable, right? The state having nuclear bombs and aircraft carriers, it's kind of questionable how effective those would be in kind of a civil unrest. But basically that argument is just to say, well, maybe then we should liberalize what civilians can have access to, right? That just is an argument to make more better weaponry available to citizenry, because that more powerful weaponry is not going to be useful for crime, right? You need to be concealed. We know that because the most powerful weapons that are legally available are not used by criminals. Criminals are not using 50 caliber Barrett arms guns. They've never been used. They're not using the largest caliber handguns. You know, you can, power is great, but when it comes at the cost of concealability and cost effectiveness, it's not good for 99% of crime. And for that 1% of crime, or the 0.1% of crime where you might be looking for a head-on confrontation, that's such a small group that, you know, that them having the ability to have something more powerful really doesn't make a difference. I've been arguing in, oh gosh, I'm not going to be able to keep up with you guys tonight. Psychosis of the left is on full display, more so than normal. You know, it's just insane how blind they are to. I mean, you can't tell them. I mean, they think that he killed Jacob Blake. They think that he killed black people. They think that he killed protesters. Like, what is the connection? Just because they were there. So Huber and Grosskreutz. Grosskreutz of the three seems to be truly ideological. You know, he's spoken for the World People's Revolution. So Grosskreutz, you know, has pretty legit, probably a protester, and I haven't seen any videos of him doing arson or anything like that. And he says he believes in the Second Amendment, which is kind of like what a lot of Marxists would say. So he's probably is. Huber, I don't know. I mean, he said that he knew Jacob Blake, that they not very well, but they'd met, they smoked weed together. So yeah, maybe he's a protester too. But Rosenbaum is not. Rosenbaum has no affiliation with Black Lives Matter. He's never been to a protest. He had a death wish. I mean, he was telling people, shoot me, nigger, which is not what you say if you're a BLM protester who's upset about Jacob Blake, right? That's not what you say if that's what you are. He just gotten basically dumped out of a mental institution after trying to commit suicide with a drug overdose, and he was picking fights with guys with rifles. And if you look at my Dominic Black video, you know, at some point in that video, Binger says, Dominic was armed with an AR-15. He goes, well, Dominic says nobody caused any trouble because we have assault weapon. You know, we have the AR-15, so no one's gonna, you know, tango with us. And indeed, most people won't. But Joseph Rosenbaum did. I mean, he did it earlier in the night. He's trying to pick a fight and literally saying, shoot me, nigger. I don't like saying that, guys, but the other thing is the media always blanked it out, and they wouldn't even say it in court. And I'm like, that's what he said. And that's relevant if you're going to try and make this a racial narrative. The only person who said nigger is the one who died and got shot. But it seems like he was either completely crazy or actually had a death wish. I've been arguing in the Alabama Libertarian Facebook page about circumcision. There's many in there that say it's a religious freedom right of the parent, and they drive me crazy. Well, Tom, I have lots of videos on that, so go ahead and send them the videos, because that's absolutely crazy, and they would never accept that for a Muslim who wanted to circumcise their daughter, even if they wanted to do a form of circumcision that was 1/10 as invasive as male circumcision. But I get it. That it's not really the religion, though. What's really happening is that guys who are circumcised are defensive about it and want to perpetuate it. And if they can say religious freedom, they'll say that. And if you corner them on that topic, They'll just move on and say it's more hygienic or it'll protect you from HIV or whatever else it takes. At the very least, Kyle should sue Gage Grosskreutz for assaulting him and trying to kill him. Yeah, he could sue him, but he doesn't have any money. Huber's family could sue. Huber's family's suing the city. Grosskreutz is suing the city. They're not suing Kyle because Kyle doesn't have any money, or at least he doesn't yet. Although if he ends up getting the bail, which I think he should get the bail, and talk about an interesting philosophical question: who should get the bail money, right? Kyle's bail was set at $2 million, and it was raised by Lynn Wood and a few others. Kyle's mom raised about $500,000, according to Richards, his attorney. And now that he is free, now that he's done, he gets the bail money is remanded to whoever. And it's not like Kyle Rittenhouse had $2 million to start. I think 100% it should go to him, though. He should have it at least that. Tell them circumcision violates the NAP, which it does. If they'll do this for a big trial like this, think what they'll do for the kind of trial your own grandma doesn't hear about when you go to the stand. How do you think the trial would have went if Kyle accidentally hit a bystander? Jolly Crocodile, the worst thing that would have happened that was almost came inches away from happening is if Kyle had shot Jump Kick Man, right? So if you look at because Jump Kick Man is black, okay? So as it turned out, everyone that Kyle shot was white, and yet people still considered making this a racial issue constantly. There's no evidence that Kyle Rittenhouse was a white supremacist. The state, he gave his phone and his passwords to the prosecution. They had full access to everything that he had. Who knows what kind of teenage nudes they found on there, but they weren't able to. And they brought up his TikTok handle, 4 Doors More Whores, which is now suddenly going to be really popular. But they found nothing, right? He wasn't in any groups. He wasn't in any chats. He didn't have any messages. He didn't have any texts. One of the big lies that came out constantly is that he was a militia member, and that's just people think, well, if you have a AR-15, you're a militia member. No, it's not that simple. He knew Dominic Black, who they called each other brother. They basically were either Kyle would be at Dominic's house or Dominic would be at Kyle's house every day for months and months prior to this. Black was dating Kyle's sister, so they kind of had a nebulous reason to maybe call each other brother. And Nick Smith, who had worked at these car source places, somehow knew Dominic, and that's who brought them in. They didn't know Brian Balch. They didn't know any of these other guys. They came in on their own, just making common cause, but not in a common group, not organized, not well organized, not well trained, not a militia by any stretch. But so he shoots Rosenbaum, runs away. He is also charged with reckless endangerment of Richie McGinnis, even though Richie McGinnis says he wasn't recklessly endangered and that he doesn't believe in the charge, but his name is still there. He gets hit in the head by a rock, falls down, and this guy with yellow pants runs up and kicks him in the face. So he's colloquially known. In the indictments, he's listed as unknown person. Colloquially, he is known as Jump Kick Man, and Kyle shoots at Jump Kick Man twice. You can see it in the video. He fires 2 shots as he's getting kicked. The photographic evidence was analyzed, and it was determined that he was kicked before he fired, and for that reason, and here's the thing, is like you have a rifle, it's a range weapon. If they're that close, it loses its utility to a large extent. Just letting people know, if you're closer than the length of the rifle, that's where you want to be if you have to fight somebody with a rifle. But you should never, ever try and do that. That's really incredibly dangerous. He fires 2 shots at Jump Kick Man. He misses. I think he was extremely lucky that he missed, because if he had shot Jump Kick Man, even if he had not killed him, if he had only wounded him, which at the angle, he would have, it would have been 2 shots like in his torso, so he probably would have killed him. Then he would have killed the black guy, and that would have been everything. And then we would have had him and his family and Al Sharp. Like it would have made it so much worse. Obviously, he wasn't targeting black people. He did not shoot Jump Kick Man because he was black. He shot at Jump Kick Man because Jump Kick Man was kicking him in the face, which, again, the prosecution would, oh, he's jumping over or around. They would never say he's kicking you in the face, even though he had the injuries to prove it. He probably had a concussion, and it's clearly seen in the video. Richards makes it very, I mean, it's obvious. There's some famous still photographs of it, too. So it's very likely that he did not shoot Jump Kick Man. And Jump Kick Man is also very lucky he wasn't shot. Also, we now know who Jump Kick Man is. He's been interviewed in the local press, and the allegation is, I haven't confirmed this, but that he has a criminal record. He came to the prosecution months ago saying he wanted to testify so he could have immunity in his other cases, and the prosecution said no. And if they don't want to give him immunity because they don't feel like they need his testimony, that's fine. But what's not fine is not telling the defense. So if it is true that the prosecution knew who he was at any point during the trial or before, and they did not disclose this to the defense, then that's a huge, huge problem. Now, he still got acquitted. Right? His evidence was so good that even with the prosecution cheating and violating his rights, he still got off. But, there should be a reckoning when it comes to that. I would find it very suspicious if Kyle put this much thought into what rounds he used. Yeah, he didn't. They just bought the cheapest stuff that they could. That's it. He proved you can't shoot into a crowd of liberals and not kill a pedophile. Well, Huber is not a pedophile. Grosskreutz is not a pedophile. He didn't kill Grosskreutz. Rosenbaum was a pedophile. I think concealed carry is always better. Concealed carry is better if you're alone, because then you have I think in general. If you're in a group, I think open carry is better. I think if you have a group of people who are open carrying, that's a very high deterrent, especially if you're more than, even 2, but if you go 4, 5, 6, nobody's going to mess with that. I mean, even a SWAT team is going to think twice about it, especially if you have cover. If you don't, if you're all alone, yes, I agree. Open carry alone is kind of, you're making a political statement. I heard one lawyer say it. At this point, open carry is using your Second Amendment in that way is also using your First Amendment. You're making a political statement. It's one I agree with. So I respect people who do open carry like that, and I have periods where I go and just watch open carry videos because it's just, I think it's wonderful that they do that. But in terms of self-defense strategy, no, I agree with you, X-Paletic. I don't think that's the best thing to do. Watch your entire Dominic Black video. What did you think? And I saw your comment. Thank you for watching. Is the oil industry good to get into? I have an English degree, but want to make more money without going back to law school. I'm currently a librarian. It's cyclical, and it can be good money, but it can also be hard work and ruin your life, and it's very up or down. So when they're busy, it's easy to get a job. When they're not, it's hard. Cops use hollow point bullets. The military doesn't. Yeah. Also, his defense attorney should have asked the police officers, if somebody grabs your gun, do you shoot them? And the answer is obviously yes. And that means that when Rosenbaum grabbed, here's the other thing. They say that Kyle shot they say he shot unarmed men. So skating around the fact that Grosskreutz had a handgun in his hand. But technically, both Rosenbaum and Huber were not unarmed because both of them had their hands on Kyle's gun. Now, with Huber, this is unambiguously true, undeniably true. He's pulling on his gun. You can see it in the video. Kyle testified to that. You can see it. When you have your arm, when you're touching someone else's gun, you are legally armed, right? You are not disarmed at that point. Huber was not disarmed for 2 reasons. Huber had a skateboard, so he's not disarmed, and he had his hand on Kyle's gun. And the barrel. What a fucking idiot. The guy was fucking stupid. I mean, fucking stupid. And I'm not saying that to diminish that it's a tragedy. Whatever was wrong with Huber, he didn't, quote unquote, he deserved to die for what he was doing. Kyle was justified in doing what he did. But he wasn't unarmed. He had his hand on Kyle's gun. Rosenbaum either was armed or very close to armed. Again, Kyle said that his hand was on the gun. McGinnis said he lunged for the gun, but I don't know if McGinnis said or could tell whether Rosenbaum touched the gun. And the coroner indicated that the burns on Rosenbaum's hand were consistent with his hand being on the barrel or at least directly above the barrel. So if he wasn't armed, he was milliseconds away from being armed. So those are all false. Jump Kick Man is presumably unarmed, but we don't know because he was never, patted down or identified before trial. He kicked him with his feet, and this point should have been made. Hands and feet kill more people every year than rifles do. And I don't mean just AR-15s, all rifles combined. That's basic FBI statistics. If you've been debating guns for a long time, you know that's the case. And Jump Kick Man is literally wearing boots and kicked Kyle in the face. Were there a lot of base libertarian women in New Hampshire? You are asking the wrong guy for that. Just got here, but does anyone mention the JQ? JQ, you're going to have to say who that is. In your opinion, does BLM have any redeeming qualities? I don't know enough about them. I hate the police too, right? I'm a libertarian. I want to abolish the state. That includes abolishing the police. But they are trying to replace it with Marxism, so it's like out of the fire into the frying pan. So I'm going to say, from what I know, the answer to that is no. Definitely clipping you and saying the N-word and remixing it. Well, only if you put it on Odyssey. Drew Hancock, you have my permission to do that, but only if you put it onto Odyssey only. China's going to defeat the USA. I actually don't think that's very likely. Somebody's a big China hawk. Weird coincidence, the drone. Yep. What do you think about the people who are saying Kyle would have been convicted if he were black? If it was exactly the same, no, I don't think in this day and age that would be the case. And actually today a black guy was what's his name, Coffee, was acquitted on self-defense after he got in a gunfight with a SWAT team and shot his fiance. No, I don't think that's the case. I don't think that there's a racial bias against black people in the police. They're if anything more hesitant. I don't think that they would have attacked this guy. They wouldn't be able to say he's racist and all these other things, even if he was racist, right? Even if he had been a Nation of Islam, black supremacist, Yaqub and all that kind of nonsense, they wouldn't have been able to do it. Have you done any hypnosis recently? Whatever happened with all that crazy stuff? I did hypnosis today. I got hypnotized today. A lot happened with that crazy stuff. And I keep meaning to do a video, but I would have done a hypnosis video, but the Kyle Rittenhouse stuff kind of came, and that took precedence. This drone is making me feel way more conspiratorial. Yeah. Whoever took the drone footage sold it to Tucker Carlson within a week, but they edited it, so they only gave him a tiny clip of it. That's what Tucker has said. Tucker's team, Tucker has said on his show that they talked with the defense like this week. And then halfway through the trial, they walk in and give it to the prosecution. And then those of you who didn't follow the trial, the prosecution then sent a copy to the defense, but it's like, I believe, 10 times fewer pixels, right? What do you think about Kyle's case being a distraction from Ghislaine Maxwell's? Well, they're both real cases. I don't think that say it's a distraction is to say like it's fake or someone's dangling there. I don't think that's the case. I think there's genuine. The stuff with Kyle was so dramatic and so in public eye, it makes sense. I think it's fair to say, well, is it really that important relative to something else? Fair question to ask. So I don't know. I mean, there's the whole thing with Epstein. There's obviously a history of the media doing its best to not look at the Epstein stuff. So I can see you thinking that, but I don't think we should assume then that the Rittenhouse stuff isn't genuine. Do you think Kyle should sue Joe Biden for calling him a white supremacist? No, I think he should show up at a town hall and say, why did you call me a white supremacist when I'm an innocent man? What do you think about that Arbery case? I haven't followed that closely. And and I'm sure a lot of you did the same thing as me. I was watching a lot of the trial on Nick Rekieta's channel where you have, it's a lawyer, but he'd have up to 10 other lawyers watching the trial live with him and commenting. And many of those lawyers are watching the Ahmaud Arbery case and are saying that very similar to the Rittenhouse case, the way it's portrayed in the media versus the way it is in court is very, very different. but I have not weighed in on it. So it's my understanding that if you should look into the Ahmaud Arbery case before you comment, and I have not, so I will not comment. Gage seems like the weakest and most pathetic of the three that attacked Kyle. I could see why you would say that, because he's the one who actually stopped at the last minute and retreated. Rosenbaum had a gun pointed at him twice and still went for it, but I literally think he was suicidal. Huber went at him twice, although the gun was not pointed at him until the last second and actually made contact. And Gage paused at the last second, even though he was the only one of them who had a gun on his own. But you could just say he's not the dumbest, he's not the most cowardly, he's just not the dumbest. Like, he seems like the smarter of the three. I mean, Rosenbaum is completely off his meds. Rosenbaum is a crazy person, right? People throw that term around, but he was completely unhinged. Huber, it doesn't sound like he was. I get the impression that he's a kind of a violent punk who just saw a chance to take it. Had an antagonistic view towards Rittenhouse and all the other quote unquote people from his mind that would be militia members, even though literally not the case. And with Rittenhouse, Grosskreutz, had the resolve to stop. And we might believe he testified he thought Rittenhouse tried to shoot him and that he had to clear a jammed round. This turns out not to be true. No round was found, and if you watch the video closely, there isn't time for him to have cleared a jam. But it is possible. It is possible for two people to get in a fight and both of them believe that they're engaged in self-defense. They're not mutually exclusive. The only problem with him isn't the last minute. It's the fact that he chased Rittenhouse as he ran away. So it's not self-defense for him. I have no sympathy for Gage. Neither do I. Look, he attacked. He interviewed briefly. He ran up to Rittenhouse as Rittenhouse is running away. Rittenhouse says he's going to the police, and Gage kind of leaves it at that. And then other people say, "Get him, get him, get him." Now, does he find out why, or like so? So when Rosenbaum is shot, the person with the best view of that is Richie McGinnis. And does Richie McGinnis attack Rittenhouse? No. Does Richie McGinnis run away when Rittenhouse circles back over to Rosenbaum's nearly dead body? Rosenbaum didn't die right then. He died, I think, the next morning. But Richie McGinnis is not terrified of Kyle Rittenhouse. He wasn't so overwhelmed with a desire to administer aid to Rosenbaum that he ignored the risk that Rittenhouse brought on him. He wasn't worried about him because he knew it was self-defense and he knew he was safe. He knew what happened, and the Zaminskis knew what happened. And I don't know, maybe some of the other people in the street, but when Kyle ran away, the Zaminskis, get him, get him, get him. As far as I can tell, and maybe other people can correct this if I'm wrong, it does seem like the Zaminskis are the ones who start the mob. Rittenhouse shoots Rosenbaum. The people closest to it know it's not, they know it's self-defense. They know it's not a mass shooting. The Zaminskis, who are, the persona non grata, right? The key of all of this, that the defense, the prosecution, the state has protected. The state has extended its protection over these people to because they probably have exculpatory testimony for Kyle. They start this mob, and Gage joins a mob. He doesn't know what really happened. Maybe he heard the gunshots, but he didn't see it. So he doesn't really know. And they say, get him, crane him, kill him. And he joins in on that. Well, I'm sorry. And then he chases him, right? The guy's clearly going towards the police. He's running away. He's not an active shooter. He's not killing anyone unless they attack him. And then he, proved to be very effective. Hello, Length. It's 7 a.m. here eating my morning donut. Kyle's our hero. Kyle, if more people were like Kyle, we'd have fewer problems. Oh, my God, guys. I'm so far behind. Reaction from the left seems to be shock and outrage that people won't feel that they can riot with impunity anymore, and the laws about self-defense and gun rights are white supremacy. Yeah, and also they have double standards on vigilantism, right? Because they said Kyle Rittenhouse is a vigilante. He wasn't. There was a lot of crime going on that night. There was arson. There was all kinds of property destruction. There was assault. Kyle Rittenhouse didn't do anything, didn't arrest anyone, didn't try and shoot anyone, did not use deadly force to protect any property. He put out some fires. That's not a crime. And then he was attacked and he used self-defense. That's not vigilantism. However, the leftists, or whoever they were, if you don't want to call them leftists, who attacked him, right? They weren't defending themselves. They attacked him. We know that. It's in the video, and that was essentially adjudicated in court. Legally, they attacked him. But then the left says they're heroes and they're trying to stop a shooter. No, well, that means they're trying to be a vigilante. I liked your Dominic Black video because you built it up until you said that the mask come on. Yeah. Oh, but don't give it away. Yeah, if Kyle was black, there wouldn't have been a trial, especially if he killed white right wingers. Yeah, that's probably true. If they had obviously attacked him like they did, even if they hadn't, they might have just said, "Hey, 1619." I think that's right. What's the future of New Hampshire currently? A red state with libertarian overtones. That is not the future, Arthur. That is the present. Will Kyle buy a 4-doored vehicle with bail money? Kyle is going to be... I don't know if he's going to accept the... I don't know if he's going to like the fame, if he's going to like the celebrity. He may simply want to be private and be left alone. And I think that people should do the best to respect those wishes. However, he's already been given gifts. Gun Owners America has already said they're giving him an AR-15, and they are not going to be alone. He's going to be given all kinds of things people are going to offer. And I wouldn't be... He could end up relishing it and loving it and enjoying the celebrity, or he could get sick of it. I don't know. His name is Coffee, yes. As a libertarian, what's your opinion of Starship Troopers? I love that they put communal showers in there. Oh, yeah. Did you see Huber's girlfriend gave Kyle her number? What a weird move. I didn't see that, and that is a weird move, but, defendants in the Arbery case are going to prison. But I have not watched the case, so I don't know what to think. Kyle's case was live streamed. Ghislaine Maxwell's All Get His Sketches. How is that not a distraction? The media has made Kyle's case a racial. Well, first of all, yeah. So federal cases, with few exceptions, don't allow video. They just don't, and that's why you get the sketches. And I think that justice should be out in the open, and all this should be live streamed. I mean, the judge doesn't like the attention, but I think it all should be live streamed. Hey, Luke, good to see you. I hope your kid's doing well. Nice to see you. Are you going to stump for Dave Smith? No. I don't know Dave Smith at all. Dave Smith doesn't know me at all. So why would I do that? He wouldn't, if I offered, he would be like, who the fuck are you? I literally cheered. Yeah, I was very happy. I cried. I'll be honest. I cried when he got acquitted. Stupid. I don't know him, but that's just how humans work sometimes. Who do you think is worse, Al Sharpton or Jesse Jackson? I don't. I mean, Al Sharpton actually, was a crack dealer. Jackson wasn't. I guess Jackson's probably done more damage, but I don't know. Are AR-15s really as good as people claim to be? Are there others that are more powerful? They're not. They're not as good as people claim to be, because the military uses them. People love them. They're not awful. They don't suck as bad as they used to, but they're not. Yeah, buy an FNFAL, buy an HK91, buy a Springfield Armory M1A, buy an AK-47. Don't buy an AR-15. I mean, you can if you want, but I don't have one. I don't like them. I don't like their charging handles either. Watching a trial was like this in depth, and then watching all the media reaction shows just how ignorant everyone in the media is. Yeah. For instance, the judge would explode at the prosecution. He did several times for good reason. Like, they violated Kyle's Fifth Amendment's rights at one point, but then he would give them whatever they wanted. They never got sanctioned. They didn't have the case dismissed, which they should have had dismissed repeatedly. I'm glad there was a jury verdict, but honestly, the case should have been dismissed with prejudice, weeks ago. But they got whatever they got. They got to admit evidence that drone footage evidence should never have been admitted. Never. They didn't know who recorded it. They didn't know what was done with it. They didn't have time to prepare. It was brought mid-trial. This should never been allowed, and they allowed it in. So he would throw tantrums, but he would get in, if you watch the trial, he would throw a tantrum, and then the prosecution would talk him down, and he'd typically give them what they wanted. And they will probably never be held accountable, and that's a real shame. Do you think Kyle will start suing the media? I doubt it, because I don't think he'll have a case. I'm not famous. Dave Smith knows me. Most likely, I have no evidence that Dave Smith knows me. I doubt that he does. Did this freeze? So there we go. 30 views, man. That's a lot for me. So yeah, one of the takeaways though is like this kind of, if you watched it, and the other thing too is like whenever the prosecution would like violate a constitutional right, the judge would send the jury out of the room and then scold the prosecution, which means the jury doesn't get to see the inside baseball. They don't get to see. So all of their all the evil doings of the prosecution are hidden, right? If they knew those things were happening, and they had little hints, like they would know that the judge would explode, and then they'd walk out of the room, and they'd have to come back. But some of the stuff that they did was so bad. And I told the story. If you want to watch the Dominic Black video I uploaded, after the live stream, which I recommend people do. Yeah, there was a witness, and I mentioned him before. His name is Joshua Zaminski. He's a 6'5" like ruffian, and when this first all broke, people found his Pornhub and whatever, and he is right there when Rosenbaum starts chasing Rittenhouse, and Zaminski and Rosenbaum were kind of seen together a lot that day. Were they friends? Did they know each other? We don't know. It's not proper for the jury to see the judge yelling at counsel. But is it proper, Jared, is it proper for the jury to know if counsel is committing grave constitutional errors? I think that would be proper, to know that if one of the sides is lying, right? And the judge even said, I don't believe you. You're not arguing in good faith, because the prosecution changed its narrative multiple times, right? So on the one hand, Rittenhouse having a gun is provocative. And they even said in closing arguments, it's the last thing the jury heard, that if you have a gun, you sacrifice your right to self-defense, which is not true. That's not a legal rule at all. And then they play this fast and loose with provocation. Well, he was there. He was lying about being an EMT. He lied about his age. He was smoking cigarettes. He had a parking ticket. He drove across state lines 20 miles from, and he's walking around with an AR-15 and, giving medical aid, but it's not really that good medical aid. He just did a bandage here, a sprained ankle there. Zaminski has teardrops under his eyes, if that means what I think it means, But Zaminski, yes, so exactly. So why is Zaminski not in the trial? Why is he not testifying? He was right there. He fires the first shot. I mean, even the New York Times reported on that right after it happened. He can't testify. What do you mean he can't testify? Of course, the defense or the prosecution could just subpoena him and require him to testify. No, they can't, because he's been charged with arson. His case should have been over months ago, but his lawyers and the prosecution lawyers got together and said, oh, no, we're going to postpone your trial until January. What are the odds that all those charges get dropped? Because you've been charged with a crime, you complete the Fifth Amendment, which means you can't be compelled to speak in this case. And so the defense cannot call him. The defense cannot compel him to come speak. And now the prosecution could offer him immunity and say, listen, you can come and testify in this court. We want your testimony because you saw the the prosecution ultimately said that Rittenhouse lost his right to self-defense because he brandished his gun at Zaminski. Their evidence to this was dog shit. It was this video that was entered late, halfway through the trial. They upscaled it. used AI to increase it. They created a blob, which is a Rorschach test, right? If you look at the blob, it could be Sasquatch. It could be a Monet painting. You would not know what it was, but they looked at it and they said, that's Kyle Rittenhouse brandishing his gun at Zaminski. What does that have to do with Rosenbaum attacking him? You know, and Binger does this disgusting routine where he's like, Mr. Rosenbaum didn't take kindly to somebody's barrel swipe. Did we know? No. Well, wouldn't you want to bring Zaminski in to testify to that fact? You know, you think that they would, but he wouldn't survive under cross. They know he would have the only reason that they would do this is because he has exculpatory information. But then they lied to the jury, and they said the reason the defense did not bring the Zaminskis in is because they know that his information would prove the guilt of their client. He said that to the jury in his closing arguments, the defense does not want Zaminski to be here. He said they could call him, but they're not because they're afraid of his testimony. When actually the state is afraid of his testimony and used its power to give him immunity from having to speak. It was disgusting. It's the job of the judge or the defendant to stop the prosecutor. Yeah, whenever a leftist says, what does somebody need an AR for? Now we can point this out. Yeah, good example. If you cross state lines, then you must allow a child molester to kill you. Literally. Yeah, it's fascinating, too. Again, the left who says, you know, we shouldn't have borders and we should let immigrants come here, you know, without any kind of anything at all. But now suddenly if you go across the state line from Illinois to Wisconsin, that just automatically perjures you as a horrible person. Yes, the prosecution wanted to make it seem like Kyle stole the gun and was never in danger and all other guys and guns were safe. Again, I learned this from you, Dominic Black video. Thank you. Everyone should watch my Dominic Black video because there are other victims to this, right? Dominic Black right now is being victimized by the state. I hope that they dismiss the charges now. They absolutely should. I saw a stabilized video from the side posted in 4chan that shows the start of the drone footage where they claim he points the gun at Zaminski. It was not shown in trial. That was a strong moment. Absolutely. When Kyle, you can see Kyle. So Richards said he was really worried that there would be a divided verdict where the jury can't decide. So they say, okay, we'll acquit him on 4 of the charges and convict him on 1. But the thing is, even the most minor charges in this would have been 15 years, right? Reckless endangerment is 10 years. With a firearm is 5 more, 15 years. Boom. And so it was not until, logically speaking, if the killing of Rosenbaum was justified, then all of the subsequent murders, killings, homicides were justified too. But a jury isn't necessarily going to be logical, right? And there was a big worry, and they probably had told Kyle this, like, there's a chance that they will acquit you on some of these and then nab you with 1. And that would have been better than being convicted of everything, but it would still not have been a just outcome. And so, yeah, he completely collapses. You know, and he had a panic attack on the stand. He had almost a panic attack when he was cross-examined. You know, one of the high drama points that hasn't been relayed as much is when he's getting cross-examined by Binger. A lot of lawyers I was watching thought his defense did a horrible job because they just kind of let him go. But I think that they wanted to let him go just to see, look, we have nothing to hide. They can pursue any line of questioning they want other than violating his constitutional rights, right? Aren't you guilty? You didn't talk to the police. My favorite line was, why didn't you just leave your gun on the ground? Yes. Yeah. Well, dude, Krause, one of the prosecutors, said, look, no. So Krause is hugely fat. Krause is a big boy. And he tells, Kyle, well, Mr. Rosenbaum's a small little guy. You're 17. You're a lifeguard. You're in some kind of shape. Has anyone looked at Kyle Rittenhouse? No offense to Kyle, but he's not in any kind of shape. In fact, it's likely the reason he got attacked is because he looked more vulnerable than anybody else. Even with that assault weapon, even with that AR-15, he was the most vulnerable looking guy out there. He looked like a kid. He was 17 and he looked 13, right? Even Jacob Blake's uncle says that. So I think he was targeted for that reason. He was alone, and he was the smallest and the least experienced and the weakest looking one. And Binger is gay, just like you. I absolutely know that. Yeah, Fluffer Boy, 2004. Yeah, and so at one point Krause says, "You just just fight, go throw hands, and sometimes you have to take a beating." That's what he said. Sometimes you have to take a beating. Like if you have a gun, you have to surrender that advantage and just let somebody else beat the shit out of you. Binger is gay, just like you. Yep. I mean, let's list all the terrible straight people out there and see if that proves a point. But yes, Binger is apparently gay and lives with a judge. Since we mentioned Sasquatch, do you believe he's real? Absolutely, yes. Sasquatch is real. All those other rifles you recommended are unwieldy and they are mostly 308. Yes, they are all 308, and 308 is a great round. So what's the problem? Yeah, Kyle looks a bit chubby to me, but compared to Krause, he's not that chubby, right? Yeah, the idea that you would leave your gun on the side is completely asinine. Who's going to steal it? You know, what are they going to do with it? You're going to lose it. I mean, just completely like you're responsible for what happens after it. Since Binger is gay, do you think he's a sex daddy? No. So Binger's email was apparently Flufferboy 2004, which means he's a cocksucker. For those of you who don't know, Flufferboy means he's a cocksucker. Which means he's not a sex daddy. He's a boy. And if you look at how he looks, he's definitely going for that Peter Pan look. He's trying to look young. He's not daddying out. He's trying to stay like a twink, which is admirable, but also a losing prospect. But it gives you some insight into his sexual proclivities for sure. He's pretty fit in my opinion, but he's a baby face, and that made him an easy target. I mean, you can find shirtless pictures. There's video of Kyle shirtless. He was a lifeguard. And also, you know, if you take the time, I went and watched when he turned himself into the police. You know, they take his shirt off and start looking up the injuries and stuff. And he's not in shape. At least he wasn't then. Maybe his time in prison, you know, buffed him up. He's definitely matured since this happened, for sure. Rosenbaum, Zaminski, Grosskreutz, these sound like very strange ethnic names. Yes, they're all black. Those are all African Americans. What? Oh, slavery advocate. I didn't see you there. Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, Krause is morbidly obese with a terrible comb over. Everyone should also check out. So he's also incredibly petty. And multiple times in the trial, he got upset because there's a local blogger who runs something called the Kenosha County Eye, and I recommend all of you check out the Kenosha County Eye. The reporter basically hates the prosecutors and just publishes every negative story. That's how we know about the Fluffer Boy. That's how we know that Binger is gay and that he's a cocksucker. Not that I mean that in a bad way. I mean, cocksucking is a great skill, but like. So in the trial twice, Krause he's like doing a cross-examination. He starts, well, do you know that you were interviewed by this biased blogger? Do you know about them? And they hate, and at one point he says, the stuff he says is mostly wrong. Like, oh, so it's not all wrong. I have to check and see if they've done an uploaded story. Let me actually look that up, guys. Kenosha County Eye. You know, it's kind of crazy too. I'm originally from Michigan, which is not Wisconsin, obviously, but touches Lake Michigan. I was born on Lake Michigan, and the day this happened, I just happened to be back for my grandma's 100th birthday party, and I was on the coast of Lake Michigan. Now, Kenosha is obviously not right there. I was on the other side of the lake, but I was right there when this happened. Okay, let's see the news. Boop, boop. Close. Okay, Rittenhouse found not guilty on all charges. Kenosha County Eye editor issues statement on Kenosha guard. Let's read his story. So I think he was in the courtroom. Just after noon in Kenosha, Wisconsin, the air we breathed smelled like justice and sweet liberty. Many of us Kenosha residents will sleep well tonight. As we all knew would happen, Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted of all charges, even the gun possession and curfew citations. Kenosha County DA Michael Gravely issued the charges less than 48 hours after a pedophile, woman beater, and career criminal all seemingly tried to kill Kyle Rittenhouse, a then 17-year-old. Kyle defended himself, killing 2 and injuring the 3rd. The prosecution pressed ahead with no witnesses that supported their case. They tried to break so many rules to force a mistrial. The judge didn't bite. 12 jurors were selected from Kenosha County to decide Kyle's fate. They reached a unanimous verdict after more than 3 days of deliberations. This is the best justice system in the world. It has flaws because people have flaws, but it's the best nonetheless. This case codifies the Second Amendment and the right to self-defense. It also should caution us to beware of progressive prosecutors like Michael Gravely, Democrat, who acts like a legislator and charges crimes against people for actions that they believe should be illegal but are not. Far-left Kenosha News journalist, in quotes, Deneen Smith angrily left the courthouse after hearing the not guilty verdicts. She looked extremely mad. When asked if she was upset about the verdicts, she gave a dirty look and scoffed. She then began tweeting about the need for gun control and blasting Rittenhouse and Tucker Carlson, obviously. She expressed her anger about the verdict and retweeted many tweets sympathizing with her career violent criminals, including pedophile Joseph Rosenbaum. The Kenosha News, owned by Lee Enterprises, claims to be a non-biased. They are not. Smith won't sleep well tonight. She wanted Kyle to rot in prison. She didn't get her wish. And then he quotes the tweet. After the verdict, media folks at the courthouse were wondering how long it would be until Kyle Rittenhouse appeared on Tucker Carlson. Not long. Yep, he's going to be on there Friday night. Oh. Yeah, I'll give you guys a link to this thing. This is a good website. Kenosha County Eye. Just the articles he has here are gold. So it's a local guy who is in the know, and I found his stuff illuminating. Let's see if I can go in here and put this into the chats. Here it goes, guys. Is there a way to post this where everyone can see it? There it goes. Boop, boop, boop. Since you believe in Sasquatch, do you believe the Patterson-Gimlin field is real, or do you think it's kind of... I think it's real. This is the most likely outcome. A guy who is lying to himself to feel younger seems fitting. Well, to be fair, a lot of people do that, but some people can do it gracefully. Going to prison is a fear of mine. I feel I will go one day. I hope that it never happens. Would shooting Sasquatch qualify as a hate crime? No, but it might qualify as a homicide depending on if it's a hominid. It is illegal in Washington state, though. Are you gay just to be able to make homophobic jokes? No, I'm gay because I am gay. But that's just a perk. I get to make homophobic jokes. Yeah, every lawyer stream I watched was constantly pointing out the big fuck-ups of both the prosecution and the defense. Is this normal for big trials? Apparently, this is normal for all trials. Apparently, this is quite normal, and prosecutorial overreach is normative, and there's not enough good defenders out there because the system is regulated. So you're an anarcho-capitalist. Is there a platform where we can further talk? I want to learn more about it. I'm a leftist considering leaving the left. Well, Arson King, I am definitely an anarcho-capitalist, and I have 500 videos on YouTube where I talk about it. So yeah, go ahead and look there. It's also on Odyssey. I'm not anywhere else, though, for dialogue. I'm on Reddit, but my Reddit activity is not about politics, primarily. That's hilarious. There's a blog dedicated to calling out scummy prosecutors, specifically in Kenosha. I didn't duck him, but I don't know how we were going to talk, and I don't know anything. No offense, Arson King. I don't know anything about you, but you know, check out my videos. And if you just leave comments in them, I'll see them, and if you know, we'll go from there. Those 3.8 rifles are like twice the weight of an AR, and they need lots of money put into them to modernize them. ARs only jam because historical army fuck ups. Okay. well, I still like 308s better, and I'm strong enough to carry it. So, the shit about Kyle is eye-opening. I never realized how authoritarian my side is. It's the cult. So it does appear that there was a lot of red pilling with this trial. It was red pilled a lot of conservatives, I think, because they saw something that somebody was clearly innocent, and then the law and order, and it wasn't just the prosecutors. Let's not forget the police are completely in the bag for the prosecution. They lied. I didn't even mention this in the other videos. The basis for saying that Kyle provoked the attack initially, before they got the video, is because Detective Howard and Detective Antaranium, who's either the son or the nephew of the mayor of the city, there were no police who witnessed any of the shootings, even though the last one happened a few blocks from the police lines. It was apparently just a little bit too far away, and they didn't see it. They went online and they found the videos off Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, and they looked at them. And one of them said, well, I zoomed in on my screen, and it looked to me, based on the zoom, that Kyle Rittenhouse barrel-swiped Zaminski. Couldn't duplicate this, couldn't prove it, but because he's a police officer, we are just supposed to accept that uncritically. Right, and it's also he refused to serve a search warrant on Gage Grosskreutz' phone that was issued because the prosecutor told him not to, because it probably had information on there that would not look good in court. Not that it would have exculpatory information. I don't think Gage, recorded Kyle being innocent. It would just probably have pointed Gage as a filthy communist, and so he didn't want it in court. So a lot of conservatives are seeing that gun-toting American, apple pie, nice guy, right? Seems to be a genuinely earnest guy, can just be railroaded by the system. And the thing is, that happens all the time. Happens to white people, happens to black people. A lot of it happens to do with the war on drugs, but it could be parking tickets. It could be anything, right? It's just a systemized way to oppress people, basically. I think a lot of them saw that. And then a lot of people on the left, I think, saw that they were systematically misled and lied to. I mean, the Jimmy Dore, for those who are curious, the Jimmy Dore our video on this is good. And I like watching him, and I like to have, some of my fingers on the pulse of some of the left, if not all. So, he's dead wrong on a lot of things and disgusting communist in a lot of ways. But he said, this has been in the news for a year, and I had the impression that I just assumed that Kyle Rittenhouse was a racist white supremacist who crossed state lines to go hunting for black people, right? That's what happened. Like, there wasn't even a debate about that. There's still news outlets who are saying he killed black people, especially in other countries. And in the United States, they will obfuscate and say it's a racial issue. Jacob Blake this, Jacob Blake that. I saw one where they said relatives of the victims, and then they showed Jacob Blake's relatives who are black, the implication clearly being that the victims of Kyle Rittenhouse are black. The victims of Kyle Rittenhouse are not black. They're white. Everyone he killed was white. The one black guy who tried to kill him, he missed. And the only person who said nigger that night, he shot 4 times. So, yes. Goodness. There should be more stuff like this. Just a guy trolling local media. And Steven, he really gets under their skin. If you go through the trial, there's numerous videos of Krause just losing it about that guy. He absolutely hates him. Do you think Biden really shit himself? It sounds like he did. What's your favorite gun based on pure aesthetics? Guys, I believe in the Second Amendment and gun rights, but I'm not like a gun fetishist, so I can't really say. Any good libertarian sources? Any good reads on anarchism stuff? Like place to start. Arson King, I have 2 books: Best Libertarian Books and Best Libertarian Books Part 2. Those are definitely good places to look. His democracy series. Jesus Christ, guys, that's going back 10 years. I was a different man back then. Watch Link's video, Liberal Hypocrite, I Rebuke Thee. Yeah, so Jared, longtime subscriber, I know that's his favorite video. For those of you who haven't seen, I do think that's a good video. Liberal Hypocrite, I Rebuke Thee. That was my fire and brimstone phase. Serious question this time. Supposing the media had created the frenzy over the Rittenhouse trial to serve as a distraction, a LA breed and circuses, are they distracting us from? Well, I don't suppose that's what's happening. But to speak to the kind of the idea behind that, there is always a lot going on, and there's a lot bad going on. So wherever your attention is, even if your attention is on something that's completely legitimate, I guarantee you somewhere else, something else is happening that's also worthy of your attention, right? And I think that we should find that what we find is interesting and realize that we don't have enough willpower or attention or mental ability to follow all of it, right? We can't, a lot of people have commented today, fist bumping, I cried, right? A lot of people cried, a lot of people got excited. The thing is, you don't have no one has the emotional stamina to do that for everything that deserves it. There were probably 1,000 other trials yesterday that deserved that kind of attention and didn't get it. And I think that we should just resign ourselves to that reality and realize it's not the worst thing in the world either, that we're not always hanging on the edge of our seats about stuff that we're not watching or having any control over. So there's things that are more important than this case going on, absolutely, and people should always, so we've got the inflation, oh my God, the inflation's huge. COVID, oh my God, huge. The wars, oh my God, huge. The war on drugs, oh my God, huge. The critical race theory. We could just go down the list of things that really, if you look at them objectively, are bigger and better stories than Kyle Rittenhouse. And I wouldn't fault anybody who said, hey, don't forget X, Y, and Z. It's just realize that people only have so much attention. And that's why it's good that we're not automatons. And that's why it's good we're not all the same. And that's why it's good that, not all libertarians are fixated on the same things. Right? You've got our crypto libertarians and our gun libertarians and our drug libertarians and our education libertarians and our war libertarians, right? Like Scott Horton, it's great that he basically is focused on one thing. And other people can use even though I'm sure Scott Horton would be phenomenal if he looked at the Rittenhouse, if Scott Horton had done 100 videos on the Rittenhouse case, I'm sure he could have, and it would have been astounding. But other people did. He covered other things, right? So I think that's the way to look at it. Yes, the media believes black people were killed by Kyle. I can't unseen my side right now and how they're acting with vaccines and Kyle. Oh yeah, vaccines, huge. And a lot of black people, I know a lot of black nurses who are quitting their jobs because they're not going to get vaccinated. Do you really think they would have killed Kyle if they were disarmed? Well, first of all, that's not the necessary standard. We don't have to prove that they were going to kill him. It's even if we knew that they weren't going to kill him, serious bodily harm is enough, right? You have to be in fear of death or seriously bodily harm. That's the standard. That's a good standard. With Grosskreutz and Huber, it's absolutely true. So Huber hit him in the head with a skateboard. That's lethal. That just happened. This happened a couple times, including recently. You can be killed when you're hit in the head by a skateboard. And I would defy, Cenk Unger or Counsel Croix, sit on your ass, give a grown man a skateboard, two-handed, and let him baseball your head with it and just see what happens. It's not good. You can die from that. You'll at least get a concussion and a scrape, right? So that's serious bodily harm right there. Kicked in the face by an adult man who's running at you, that's serious bodily harm. Huber also had his hand on Kyle's gun and was pulling it away. Maybe he was going to throw it away. Maybe he was going to turn it on him. I don't know. Grosskreutz had a gun pulled on him. Grosskreutz, by the way, also, we haven't mentioned this yet, told his roommate, or at least his roommate posted on Facebook the next day, I met Gage. Here's a picture of me with him. He's doing fine. He says his only regret is that he didn't fire first and empty that entire clip into the kid. He's called the kid. Now, in trial, his friend, he denied saying this. His friend was brought in and said that he lied to help his friend. But of course, he is not admitting that he lies to help his friend on the stand, which means he's lying now, because that lie would not have helped his friend at all. So, yeah, Gage, yes. Huber, yes. Jump kick mad, maybe. And Rosenbaum is the tricky one. But Rosenbaum was going for his gun. I mean, you can hear it in the video. The last thing Rosenbaum ever said on this earth was "fuck you," and then he lunged for the gun, according to Richie McGinnis, according to Kyle Rittenhouse, according to the video as best as you can see, and according to the coroner, who said his hand is burned, consistent with having either been on the barrel or above the flash, which means it was at that spot. You know, why was he going for his gun? I don't know. I think that it is, you know, when the defense was speculating that Huber would have taken his gun and gone on a rampage, I think that was a lot of speculation. I think what was going to happen is he was probably going to try and take the gun and beat his ass. But he could have taken it and gone after the police, because I think Rosenbaum seriously had a death wish. With all the M-bombs you're dropping, look, free speech, and like, how can we, you know, the point of a trial is to come to the truth. How can we have the truth if we just edit all that when it's relevant to the narrative? What's your Myers-Briggs type? I don't remember anymore, but it was the second least common type, I believe. Yeah, Jim Krause, a.k.a. Lunchbox, a.k.a. the Penguin, a.k.a. Big Boy, has been targeted in the Kenosha County Eye throughout the trial. Yeah, there's actually a video of the Kenosha County Eye editor saying, "Thank you, Jim Krause. I am more popular than I've ever been before. This is a huge trial. No one's ever heard of me. You mentioned me in court several times," and now he goes, "I've gotten like 100 times more traffic than normal. So thank you, Jim Krause, a.k.a. Lunchbox, a.k.a. Penguin, a.k.a. Big Boy." Will you do more videos on CRT? I will. Yeah, it's not old news. I will continue to do videos on that. What do you think of the argument that liberals make that pro-life conservatives are hypocritical because they're okay with putting migrant kids in cages? Well, first of all, putting a migrant kid in a cage, whatever you think of that, is not the same as murdering a baby. I mean, you can say they're both bad, but they're not the same. So there. Division of Libertarian Labor. Yeah, there's a story today of someone being killed in assault with LA and a skateboard. I also think that the media really wanted there to be mass riots over this, and there just weren't. Kenosha, you're talking about a couple dozen, no violence. And then it was funny, too, because I saw a lot of newspapers saying from coast to coast protest. And when they say coast to coast, what they actually meant was Brooklyn and Portland. So what they meant is one city on one coast and one city on the other coast. But they say coast to coast to make it sound like there's been outrage about the Rittenhouse verdict across the country. There hasn't been. I'm sure people in Nebraska, there's some people in Nebraska who are upset. They're not rioting. I'm sure there's people in Michigan and Ohio and Alabama and Wyoming who are upset. None of them are rioting. None of them are having organized protests. The only people who are having organized protests are in Brooklyn, and it wasn't even that many there. You could see that they said, oh, they stormed the Brooklyn Bridge, and then they panned out, and you could see, yeah, it was a couple hundred people, but that's about it. And with a city with like however many live in New York, that's really, that's like a dime a dozen. And then Portland, and it's like Portland's always having this happen, so what does that even prove? There was very little happening in Kenosha. Kenosha wasn't destroyed. There are no mass riots. Joe Biden's president, so they're not making fun. And even when they were covered, they would even say like, yeah, a couple businesses were broken into and the police declared it a riot. So now they can call it a riot now the president is a Democrat. Apparently he did have a concussion from the skateboard. Well, he got hit in the head by a rock, in the back of the head by a rock. He got kicked and hit his head on the pavement, I believe. And he got hit in the neck. He got hit in the head of in the back of the head by the skateboard once, and then on the neck a second time. And he was dry heaving and vomiting. You can find videos of this. If you find the videos where he turns himself in, they're heart-wrenching. He's in there with his mom, and they both completely lose it. His poor mother, was not prepared for this, but you know, she came through it all right. But like, it's very likely he had a concussion through by the time he fell down or by the time he got up, which astounding his trigger discipline. Astounding. Exactly. I'm a black leftist. I've been following this content creator. His name is Eric July. The vaccines and Kyle are my personal red pill moment. The left is becoming a shield for the government. Yeah. I mean, the left is for government. Arson King, if they're, you know, I don't really know you, but if all you're saying is true, you know, congratulations on being willing to change your mind. More people need to be willing to do that, including libertarians. We all need to be able to integrate new information into our minds. And the government, the left is always pro-government. They can say that they're for the little guy or whatever, but their answer for the little guy is to empower the state to some unlimited amount. What do you think about the people on the right calling Rittenhouse a hero? Yeah, so I had a little disagreement with a friendly disagreement with the sauce on this the other week, because I said I didn't necessarily think he was a hero. This would become a semantic argument about what is a hero. And so depending on your definition, it could or cannot apply to Rittenhouse. I think that, in my view, a hero would be somebody who knew that they were going into something where there was a lot of danger, and also that they're doing it for some kind of reason beyond their own hedonism. So like a daredevil who is doing something extremely dangerous, but it's because they enjoy it. I could respect that, but you wouldn't consider that heroic. Versus somebody who says, I'm going to do something extremely dangerous because of altruism or because of some principle, like I really believe in something and I'm going to do it. That's heroic. So Kyle, for me, it's kind of debatable if Kyle meets his definition, because yes, he went to the riots, but the riots weren't like a death sentence. They were kind of violent and going to be rowdy, but it wasn't something that you would expect to necessarily result, you know, be served death, right? Just like when you drive on the road, you could die, but you just, you know, don't assume that it is. So I think Kyle is a good, decent, earnest guy. He's genuinely wanting to help people, so that's good. But also believed in self-defense and also didn't like the destruction of property. So, you know, it seems like his values were kind of very Midland-esque and kind of libertarian as far as that goes. Although I'm not saying he is libertarian. I doubt that he is. And so none of that's heroic, but that's all very decent and very respectable. But then where he elevates himself some is his trigger. He got attacked. He defended himself like he should have. And he only killed people who attacked him. He restrained himself admirably. You know, he tried to kill Jump Kick Man, but failed. But the guy who hit him in the back of the head with a rock, he didn't kill. And then the most telling moments at that, you watch that second incident, and he holds up Grosskreutz, who he does not shoot until Grosskreutz aggressively moves and points his gun at Kyle. And that's when he shoots him. And you can see other rioters charging him with melee weapons. Some have clubs, some have poles, and he levels his rifle at them, and they stop. And he doesn't fire, and he 100% could. And for all those people who saying he was hunting black people, he went there to kill, he has justifiable self-defense on all those people. There are at least 2 or 3 other people, at least, that he could have killed right then and said self-defense all the way, and he doesn't do it. He doesn't do it. The trigger discipline is admirable. And so if he's heroic, that's when he becomes heroic. But again, it's semantic and difficult, so I'm not sure I agree. Wow. Fact is, Kyle is forever a damaged and traumatized man. That's probably true. He has to deal with the difficulties of life as a media target and a target of Antifa lunatics. Yeah, I'm hoping that he'll get some anonymity and that things will calm down and he'll slowly be able to develop and become. This will always be part of who has been. Maybe it will become a scar and less of a trauma. Yeah. Serious question. What's your strategy for finishing Man, Economy, and State? Well, just skip to the end and read Power and Market because it's the best part. Found it concerning that Joe Biden said the jury system works, and his handlers released the modified statement to make him seem outraged by the outcome. Yeah, talking out of both sides of his mouth. I will say one thing I noticed about this, the jury system is a questionable system. I definitely can see what the Founding Fathers were going for. The Founding Fathers, for their many flaws, I think for the most part were making a good faith effort and recognize some of the philosophical problems with government, which modern people, even modern conservatives, don't seem to understand. Modern progressives and leftists have completely rejected, the idea that government can be dangerous, that government can be force, that there are incentive problems and moral hazard problems with the government that are real serious, like that are existentially serious, that are worse than any other problems that society is really going to face, at least as far as human activity can go. Right? Obviously, like a super volcano or a meteorite, those could be worse, but or a plague. But in terms of human organization causing problems, the state's potential for abuse is at the top of the list. And the Founding Fathers, for the most part, understood that, some more, some less, and they made a good faith effort, I think, to try and address it as well as they could, and the jury system was part of that. But the jury system is not perfect. It raises ethical questions. So these jurors are basically slaves. I mean, if you watch the trial, the way that maybe that's to denigrate slavery, but it's a form of corvée labor at the very least, where the judge is like, get up, leave, come back, go. You can't do this. You can't do this. You have to do this. And it is a little weird that they are completely at the behest. Like, the idea is that they protect us from government overreach, right? That they're a bulwark against tyranny, but yet they're at the complete beck and call of a state official, right? That they have to do whatever the judge says, and then he gives them instructions. Now, they can defy those instructions. If you ever look at a fully informed jury association, FIJA, the whole point there is that a jury can acquit anyone of anything at any time, right? If you get 12 people to come and say, even if the guy is 100% guilty and the judge tells you have to rule them guilty, you can rule them innocent. And it happens. It's called jury nullification. Now, we need a culture that accepts this idea much more for it to actually be a bulwark, because the way it is systematized now, you have the lawyers picking the juries to as much extent as possible. They'll disqualify. If you believe in jury nullification, never, ever, ever tell that unless you want to get off the jury. Then there's all this legalese. Like, for the jury deliberations for this, it wasn't like the judge said, okay, tell us what you guys think. The judge gave the jury 36 pages of instructions. Like, these are what you have to do. Now, they could have completely ignored them and just come back and said he's innocent and we didn't even look at it or whatever, and there's nothing he could have done. But they don't know that. So all the ceremony, the bench and the robe and the seal and the legalese and the gravitas, all this is designed to impress upon the lay people the authority and the legitimacy and the righteousness of the state and its institutions. And that can all be turned to paint any picture that they want. If the laws were different, they could have indignantly declared Kyle Rittenhouse a rebel and an evil person, blah, 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 right? They could have said he shouldn't have crossed state line. Like, if Wisconsin wasn't an open carry state, they said the fact that he was open carrying an AR-15 makes him a criminal and forfeits his right to self-defense. And they could rewrite the laws of self-defense to say that, and the judge could tell the jury that, and all the power of his robes and his mahogany desks and his gavel and the seal with its intricate carvings that nobody knows what they mean, but they presumably are important, and the Latin and the Greek and the suits and the Bible and the hand and all these things, right? And then he tells you got to find him guilty, and that's what are the odds that you're going to have 12 jury nullifiers? Well, very low at this point, but one of these days. Yeah, Kyle really did outperform the cops and the Navy SEALs. He will say, though, he wasn't aiming for the bicep. I wish you weren't an anarchist. Why do you wish I wasn't an anarchist? I wouldn't be who I am. A lot of people wish I wasn't gay. I'm sorry to disappoint. I can't make everybody happy. Here's the thing. The vaccines are showing me that the rights of the individuals are destroyed by the collective. Yeah, but it's not only the vaccine where that's the case, Mr. Arson King. Also, Mr. Arson King, how did you come across my channel, right? If you're a leftist, what is it that brought you onto this feed this fine evening? Do you still have those zombie tool weapons? Of course I do. There's still zombies out there. I don't think he's a hero. He's not a criminal, and he's a good citizen. Sounds like a good summary. Care to contrast with the Arbery case? I haven't watched the Arbery case, so I will not comment on it because I don't know. I think the juries are not good. There should be professional jurors, multiple judges, or something. Yeah, like jurors can reach horrible conclusions, but professionals raise other issues. So I'm not sure what the answer is. No compensation for your time. It's a duty, right? You're being basically drafted. But I think if you're, no one's obligated to do it. And I think if you want to get off, all you have to do is say, I believe in jury nullification. But if you are given the chance to acquit somebody of I think that philosophically, if you can find it in your heart to do it, I think you should. And I think I've told this story before. My mom has actually jury nullified somebody before. And she didn't even realize she was doing that. But it's a system that only works if the culture is a certain way, and the culture really isn't quite, it's not totally antagonistic to that, but it's not where it would need to be to really work. It's like having an engine that runs on oil and you don't put oil in it. It's like, it's not going to work very well. And, we don't have a culture that makes the jury system work the way that it should. Former Marxist. I don't care if you're gay. I wish you were a Sasquatch. I mean, I'm getting there with this hair. I wish I was gay or even bi. Actually, bi would be best, but I'm not. But I'm straight as fuck. I'm sorry. Nobody's perfect. The waste of a good foreskin, Alexandros. On CNN's homepage, there's nothing more frightening today than an angry white man. You mean like an angry white pedophile who wants to shoot? Yeah. Molyneux for all of his flaws. Hey, Molyneux's done a lot of good work for all of his flaws. I'll be the first to admit that. Why are those claiming libertarian ideology so disproportionately male? It must be something about the personality type. What's also fascinating too, though, is it also has some of the most important libertarian thinkers, though, have been women, especially Ayn Rand, right? Like if you look at the other political philosophies, women don't register anywhere. And it's not just Ayn Rand. You've got Isabel Patterson, Rose Wilder Lane, a couple others. Like it's fascinating. But yeah, it's definitely a sausage fest. You're behind, sir. I saw you suggested in Reddit because I was looking up libertarian sources. Wait. I'll get the link. Oh, I'd love to see that. Where was I suggested in Reddit? I'm active in Reddit, but not in politics. I'm the sure. That's just. I should interview Kyle Rittenhouse about his views on communal showers because he worked at a YMCA and went to a prison. She disagreed with anarchism, of course. Yes. And she didn't like to call herself a libertarian, but, yeah, she thought that you needed to have an ultimate arbiter. She thought that you needed to have an ultimate judge who would, implement, discover, outline, objective law, and she didn't think you could do that without a state. And she didn't think, the idea of a polycentric legal order, that's something that was anathema to objectivism. Now, a lot of her post-objectivist students pointed out, if that's really what you believe, Madam Ayn Rand, then should you not favor a one world state? Because you can't have different countries that have different laws that are not objectivism. And none of her supporters ever came out for a one world state, but it seemed to be logically entailed by what she was saying. Molyneux had an insanely biased review of the Arbery case. Molyneux even blamed Eric Garner for being choked to death by NYPD for selling Lucy's. Yes, again, I have not followed the Arbery case. The lawyers that I have been watching on the Rittenhouse case have said that that is another case where what is reported and what is in the trial are very different things. And if you've been following the Rittenhouse case, you have gotten a textbook example of how that can happen. The way the media reported, I mean, it was like, here's a classic one. Gage Grosskreutz, right? The third guy that Rittenhouse shot, the guy with the gun who Rittenhouse shot in the arm. Grosskreutz survived. So you've seen a ton of articles, the sole survivor. Well, that's not really true because like Jump Kick Man survived. All the other people around Rittenhouse survived. McGinnis survived. Zaminski survived. Zaminski's wife survived. All those people who were charging Rittenhouse with poles and clubs, they all survived. 2 people died. 1 guy lost his arm, and 1 guy got really close to getting shot twice, but ended up not harmed. And so, Grosskreutz testifies, and he gave a quote. He goes, "I was afraid for my life." And that was on the quotes everywhere. Everything. I was in fear for my life. I thought I was going to die. I was afraid for my life. I was afraid for my life. Oh, yeah, and he did say that in the trial. But you know what else he said in cross-examination? And probably the best bit of lawyering in the entire case, in my completely lay opinion, and just borrowing from the opinion of lawyers who know more than I. Corey Cherafisi, who is the co-counsel for the defense, got Grosskreutz to admit on the stand, on the witness stand, that Kyle Rittenhouse did not shoot him when his hands were up. He did not shoot him until he lunged towards him, brought his hands down, and pointed his gun at Rittenhouse. And he said, isn't it true that Rittenhouse did not shoot you until you loaded your front foot, brought your arms down, and pointed your gun at Rittenhouse? And Gage Grosskreutz said, correct. That's the most important, relevant part of his testimony. That means that it's almost impossible for it not to have been self-defense. And that's not what the media said. The media ignored that part. They went for the emotional eye. And then he went on Good Morning America and lied. And they even admitted. He gets on there and they were like, well, the anchor even says, well, you're not on the stand now, so you can say whatever you need to say, AKA you can lie and I won't give you any pushback. And that's what he did. That's what the media did. It was disgusting. And I don't know if that's happening with Arbery, but I've heard that it is. But I haven't looked at it, so I'm not in a position to say. I posted it. I don't see it. I don't see it. Guys, if it's in the chat, I'm not going to see it. So if you guys have the link to whatever he's talking about, can you just post it in the comments when this is over? I don't see a link anywhere, Arson King. No one sees the link. So, all right, guys. It's an hour and 49 minutes. So let's start doing final questions here. It's getting late. I don't want to stay up much past this. But anyway, I want to thank Arson King. Thanks for showing up on the stream. It's good to see somebody changing their views, and I've got a lot of videos and pretty much any topic about libertarianism that you're curious about, I've probably made a video about it. So just go through the titles and look those up if you're interested. No link. Well, Arson King, what subreddit was it in, and what was the name of the article? Can you just type that? Oh my gosh, we got The Pepe is arguing with the only length or mods. There's no mods other than me, so yeah. You'll post in the comments. Well, thank you, Arson. Thanks for coming by and keep an open mind. And if you have any questions in the videos, just post them there. Well, you don't need John Wayne, to settle disputes. You can have two parties settle them each other, right? They can just negotiate. And if they can't decide, they can approach a third party. And that third party doesn't need to be, that third party does not need to be the single third party for every dispute, right? So like if you and I can't agree on something, we go to a third party. But if two other different people have a dispute, they don't have to go to the same third party. So you don't have to have that third party be the state, right? Arbitration does not require the establishment of a state. That's just a fundamental. Okay, anarcho-capitalism, so I've heard of that. But what's the name of the article? So, yeah. Okay, thanks, Arson. I'll look it up. I'm not active on there at all. Why is anarcho-capitalism not considered real anarchism? It's not considered real anarchism by left anarchists. It is considered real anarchism by anarcho-capitalists. It's left anarchists like to get into semantic arguments and say they use the term anarchist first. I think that this is complicated because the first anarchists in the 19th century were kind of like proto-anarchists, and people like Proudhon and Kropotkin and some of these other figures, Molinari, they don't fit neatly into the right or the left of today necessarily. And so there's a lot of left-wingers who will cite them, but there's also a lot of right-wingers who will. But then in the first half of the 20th century, you didn't have much right-wing anarchism. There were little strands here and there, but most of it was left-wing anarchism. The anarcho-syndicalists, the anarcho-socialists, whether it was in the Paris Commune or in Soviet, the breakdown of the Russian Empire, or in anarcho-syndicalist Spain. And it wasn't until the mid-century that anarcho-capitalism started to emerge, and in a totally different context and in a totally different kind of history. So the original anarchists don't like the anarcho-capitalists and consider them not anarchists. But if you define anarchism as the abolition of the state, then they are truly and totally anarchists. But then we have this problem where like anarcho-capitalists like myself think, okay, we want to abolish a state, but then we don't want to replace it with some kind of ultra union or a commune that controls everything, which is what anarcho-syndicalism often seems to entail. And so we would say, yeah, maybe they're not statists, but they're something worse. But they would say the same thing about us. You want to abolish the state, but then you also want to have corporations run everything, which is a simplification for sure, but you can see where they're coming from. But they say you have to be anti-hierarchy, and capitalism is hierarchy. Well, capitalism and hierarchy are not syllogisms, but there's certainly a relationship there. But there's no such thing as a lack of hierarchy. I don't care how egalitarian or equitable or whatever, there's hierarchy everywhere, including among leftists, right? If Noam Chomsky is, his opinion matters more than random, Anthony Huber's, for instance. Right, so hierarchy exists. Doesn't mean hierarchy can't be a problem, or doesn't mean it can't be abused. Doesn't mean all authority is legitimate. That's not what I'm saying. But the idea that we need to have an equitable or equal society in terms of outcomes is not only impossible, it's insane. All right, guys, getting late. Yeah, no one is really against hot. As Jordan Peterson, points out, it exists in lobsters. It's going to exist here too. It exists in ant colonies. It exists in lion prides. We're not going to get rid of it, and we don't necessarily want to. No, Justin, the problem with that is if you have, well, different states, different geographical monopolies, you have to have an arbiter between those monopolies, right? So you still need an overarching state. Also, Brocheck. Who's Brocheck? Who's your favorite ANCAP YouTube channels on Reddit? Let me look. Let me see if I can find this. Boop, boop, boop. Like I said, I don't really use Reddit for politics anymore. I used to know the guys who kind of started the anarcho-capitalism subreddit. Oh, goodness. I have a message. Guys, my communal shower subreddit has almost 10,000 members. It's like 3 times bigger than my YouTube channel. So, let's see. How come I can't find this? Oh, I don't use this enough. R anarcho-capitalism. How do you search in Reddit? I can't believe I just said that. Search. Anarcho-capital. There we go. Oh, wait. How about this? I'll just search my name. It's been a long time since I did that. Limit my search to this. Yes. No, that can't be right. No, this is the wrong sub. Such a boomer. Oh, this one. Okay. Let's search. Oh gosh, how do I do these in new? Gosh, I've nothing been posted with my name in it. Favorite ANCAPish YouTube channels. This is posted 5 years ago. Is that what you're talking about? Would say Lengthy Unearther is my favorite right now. Posted 5 years ago. Okay, wow. Anon 333, I know him. Who else? These people are all dead now, or gone. YouTube dead. Oh, it's calling you bro as a form of respect. Oh, okay. What's your favorite ANCAP YouTube channels? What's your favorite ANCAP YouTube? I mean, the golden era of ANCAP YouTube channels is long past us, I think. Molyneux? ANCAP Media? Yeah, that's it. What's your favorite ANCAP YouTube channels? That Guy T, Larkin Rose, Freedom Tunes. Somebody named Richard Rawl put mine. These are pretty short. Anarchy Ball YouTube. Yeah, I haven't posted an anarcho-capitalism in like 4 or 5 years. Uh, blah 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 blah. I'm openly gay athlete at a D1 school and use the showers and have never had any problems. Well, Chance Hurley, you should check out the communal shower subreddit and post in there. We would love to have you there. So happy Kyle's free, as am I. Anarchy Ball YouTube. Okay, yeah, that's what I just saw. That's 5 years ago. What does it take to be a YouTuber? And well, I'm not a very successful one, so I'm not one to ask. Yeah, it was from 5 years ago. I found you for your polylogism of gun control video. Jesus, how many views does that even have? The polylogism of gun control. I remember that video. It's a good video. If you guys are interested in gun rights, check out my gun rights video. The poly. You could tell I just read Human Action before I made that video. It was, oh my God, 10 years ago. Oh, Jesus. Guys. Oh, fuck this. This is a blast from the past, guys. Here it's coming into the... You got to share that gem. 277 views. Wow. Crazy Pants 88. Jesus Christ. I met him when I went to Iceland 7 years ago. 2 comments. No beard. An extra 50 pounds. Living in my parents' basement. I'm not even... Oh, God. I'm not even 30 yet. I'm 28 in that video. Jesus. Isn't Molyneux a racist? Yeah, I think he technically is, but don't hold it against him. To what communal shower post? So Chance Hurley, go on to Reddit and search for the communal shower subreddit, and that's a subreddit that I run, and it's all about communal showers. And you should check it out and post. We've got over 9,000 members as of this week, so it's 5 times more successful than my YouTube channel, even though it's only been around for 2 years. Maybe do some editing in your videos. Yeah, so I'd be doing 10 times the effort, but the content wouldn't be any better in terms of like the information or the philosophy or anything. So I'll leave it to the professionals. I have a real job. Yeah, I said don't hold it against them. I mean, the term has been robbed of so much meaning that it's kind of like because they use it for everything, so it's like doesn't mean anything anymore. That's what I mean by that. I mean, he was arguing that like different races are like different species and they have different like reproduction strategies, K species versus S species. So yeah, that's pretty racist, like legitimate racist, you know. So yeah, he's made a lot of good content. I think he's basically his problem being he's a complete narcissist. He's a little problem being a misogynist, but he's also a grifter. And it's like, what gets him the most views? Then that's what he's most interested in. Thumbnails are important. Ugh, guys. Who cares what the thumbnail is? Do you ever watch a video and realize that the thumbnail never occurs in the video at any point? Because I've watched a lot of videos with shirtless guys where no shirtless guys ever appear. And you know what happens? I never watch them again because I know that they're just like honeypotting me. the Rothbard or Hoppian, they're not mutually exclusive. I would say Hop is a Rothbardian to a large extent, and I've read and enjoyed both, but more Rothbard than Hop. See Springtime of the Nations channel. Springtime of the Nations channel. Never heard of that. Springtime of the Nations channel. 39 videos. Oh, we got the clip from the Patriot. Russell Means. Awesome. Okay. Okay. Rothbard. Oh, these are some interesting titles. Bougainville's Victory Against Empire. All right. All right. Now, Walter Block. I don't know if I want to watch that, though. Is libertarianism right wing? Jeff Riggenbach. Okay, yeah, I'll give this a check. You keep. I'm assuming that is that you because you keep bringing it up. Let's see. We all have so much to learn, Arson King. Don't worry. Thoughts on peeing in the shower? Yes. So I think it depends where you are. So like, I mean, you're gonna wash your ass, and that's actually like worse in a lot of ways. Pee is mostly sterile, and it's mostly water. It's all gonna go down, but it makes a smell that people don't like, and it can gross people out. So I think in moderation, if no one's around, it's not a huge deal, but it's not polite in company, especially people who you don't know. But if you're like, as Chance Hurley is saying, if you're on a team and you guys accept that in your subculture, then that's different, I guess. Mixolydian minor is the best scale. All right. 2 hours, 7 minutes, guys. I think it's time to go. Well, I want to thank everyone for watching. Everyone rest easy tonight. The Kyle Rittenhouse is free, and the battle is won, but it's not the war. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned from the trial. There's still people who are suffering from this. As you check out my previous video uploaded earlier today about Dominic Black for a little more in depth on that part of the trial. But if you got to go, you got to go.